Am I live now? I should be. Let me know please in the chat if I am now visible and audible. Now it works. Okay, great. So I was live for about 5 6 minutes, and I thought like if I am able to see my preview on YouTube, I'm live. But there was a button specifically which I had to click, which said go live. Yeah, it was. Yeah, first blooper. So this is the first time I'm going live, so like things might mess up. Sorry for that in advance. uh, so I hope now I'm visible and audible clearly. Just let me know if there's an issue. And hello everyone, I'm Kushagar, uh, co-maker of CSSBattle, and I welcome you all to the first ever official CSSBattle live stream. Welcome. Cool, so we'll wait for a few more minutes since I messed up for a few minutes. Let's wait for a few more players to join. Hi Danush, hi Wheat, hi Gabriel. So happy to see you all here. Thanks for coming. I was so nervous. I am so nervous about the stream. This is the first time I'm going live. I actually made some notes here. What all things to do, what all things to say. White. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hey, White. Okay, I think we have 9 players watching the stream. That's a big number for the first stream. Cool. I think like we can slowly kick off, and then as and when more players join, we can take up things. So again, I welcome you all to the first ever official stream on the CSS Battle YouTube channel. And I think like I might be like might have seen me for the first time. I am the co-maker of CSS Battle. I created CSS Battle with my friend, which happens to be also named Kushagra. Um, and it's been more than 5 years since this game is out there, and all of you wonderful players have been playing here and making it a big success. This live streaming has been on my mind for some time now. Couldn't get a chance, and finally, new year, new stuff. Finally got a chance to start this live stream, and I'll talk a bit about why I wanted to do this and why I'm so excited for these streams. Hope I can do them regularly. So the main motive why I wanted to do these streams, or the primary thing that I want to do on these live streams is my own selfish aim to learn more CSS from you wonderful players, people who are so creative and write such amazing gold solutions to the daily targets. I'm like, it's always mind blowing. I'm always in awe daily on every target. When I see the top solutions the next day, it just blows my mind. The amount of creativity we can see in those solutions, and I personally want to understand those solutions, to get to know CSS better, to get to know those creative thinking process more. So yeah, that's the primary motive, my own learning. uh, and of course, like we had a YouTube channel with I think more than 600 subscribers, and it had no content, mostly no content. So yeah, I thought like I could learn from those top solutions myself alone, but why not stream and let everyone watch and learn together? So that's the whole idea. Okay, we have 8 viewers right now. Cool. So yeah, that's the main thing, and I have few ideas for future for these live streams. So of course, like uh, since like I'm not great code golfer. Uh, so many of those solutions, which we'll see, the top solutions for targets, I might not be able to understand them, of course. So I will need help from the creators of those solutions themselves. So one idea is I might invite some of the top players on the stream if they agree to, and we could chat with them, we could know them better, and of course like talk about their creative process, their thinking process, and the actual solutions to some of the targets, and learn CSS better together. So that's something I want to do in future. Okay, White has a question: how do you create the targets? How do you code something in CSS and then render it do you code something in CSS? No. These are created in Figma. So these are basically pixel art, I mean as in done on pixels. Straight away these are designs, and they're exported as PNGs. They're not coded, they're not created from code. So creating a target daily is it's a big responsibility. Sometimes we have a stock pile up of targets for the next few days. Sometimes we don't. Uh, so it's like you have to make sure there's a daily target every day, and spending time on writing code, uh, like it would take more time, I think, compared to creating it in Figma. That's much faster. So yeah, that's how we do. That's one of the reasons, like, and of course creating in Figma is you get much more freedom, much more creative freedom to build all sort of things. So yeah, that's how it works. Cool. uh, yeah, that's the whole idea for these streams. Cool. I think like it's been 12 minutes. I think we can start with the actual stuff. uh, yeah, so the primary thing which I wanted to start with in these streams is actually learning from the daily targets, the top solutions of the daily targets, because they are public, and try to reverse engineer them and see what was the thinking behind those, how are those solutions working. And of course we'll get to know some new CSS properties, or some new CSS, or new ways to use the existing properties that we already knew, but we didn't know that they could be used in some other way. So yeah, let's start with those. So just in case you don't know about CSSBattle, it's a game where uh, you have to create these images that you see. These are called targets. You have to create these targets with HTML and CSS in the least number of characters, in the least code possible. So that's how you get a more score. So you first replicate the target 100%, get a 100% match, and then you try to reduce the number of characters. That's called code golfing, and that increases your score more. So that's what the primary game objective is. And we have these things called daily targets. We introduced like I think 1.5 years or 2 years back, little less than 2 years. So you get a target daily. If we go here, you can see this calendar which shows the daily targets of all the past days since it's been live. And if you are on a plus account, you can actually play the past targets as well, even access their top solutions. Otherwise, the current day's target is the only one that's accessible to you, the target and its solution. So since I'm on plus, let's try to solve, not solve, reverse engineer a few of the past daily targets. So I chose a few targets uh, which I thought would be good to reverse engineer. They look interesting. The top solution look interesting. Now, of course, like remember, I haven't dived into the solutions beforehand. Like it's the first time I would be actually seeing what the actual top solution do. Just that the on a quick glance, the target seemed interesting. I saw the topmost solution, and it looked like not too easy and not too difficult. So maybe I could be wrong, but yeah, it looked interesting, looked doable for a first stream. So the first target that I want to do is the one we had on 8 December, which is this one. Right. So I mean, it looks simple. At least for getting 100% match, this target is pretty straightforward. You have few rectangles. Now the most trivial approach would be you have few rectangles and just place them correctly. Like you could have these as individual rectangles, place them correctly on the page, and then you set the right colors and you would get 100% match. That's the most straightforward thing you could do. The other thing you could do, I'm just like talking about like a few of the trivial solutions that one could do before reaching the point where you start golfing and thinking more creatively. So other way could be you create these rectangles. This could be, I think it's a square or maybe a rectangle, I don't know. 100, 200, this is 150, 250, I think it's a square. So you have this square and this thing, whatever rectangle or square, you create these and then you set the colors inside them. So each square or rectangle, let's call them rectangle. So each rectangle here, they have two colors, right? Each rectangle has two colors. So you could do a linear gradient in them, from dark to light. For the outer one you go from light to dark, and for the outermost one you go again in reverse. So you could set linear gradients alternatively and you would get the same thing. So I can think of these two approaches right now, the trivial approaches. But yeah, let's do what we are here for, which is check out the top solutions and try to understand, try to reverse engineer them if we can, of course. And of course, like I might get stuck somewhere at a lot of places actually. So just help me out in the chat box. um, cool. So let's start with uh, the top solution. Okay, so one thing which we can do just to start with every target is we can put in a little bit of indentation and spacing, because we are not trying to get a good score, but instead we want to understand it, right? So I think this is okay, and we have some padding, background, linear gradient. Yeah, right. Cool. So if you just like insert few spaces here and there, new lines and spaces, you would get a little bit more readable code. And to make it a little more readable, what we can do is put in few. Okay, right. So the packet is missing here. So this is what I'm doing right now is the opposite of code golfing, which is making it more readable. and putting in more braces. Yeah, I think we're done. Yeah, I think. Cool, so this is more readable now. Let's try to understand what's happening here. Okay, so on the top most we have a rule here. This rule has a selector star, which is a universal selector, which means it applies to everything on the page, starting right away from HTML, then to the body, and then whatever is inside, all the tags. It applies to everything basically. And if you see on a page where you don't have any HTML, by default you have the HTML, you have the body, and you can see in this solution there's also a P. By the way, this top solution is by Juraj, and yeah, it's, you can see the first top four solutions all are on 94. We'll see like if they are the same approach or different, but yeah, the top four are on same score. Okay, so yeah, this rule set applies to everything on the page, and since we have a P, so that makes it 3 elements on the page, HTML, body, and a P. Now there's a nested rule here, which is like we are using like the solution is using nested selector, which is again star. So that would mean anything and then nested anything. So basically meaning anything inside anything, anything which is inside something, right? And that would mean HTML is ruled out because it's not inside anything. Then starting from body, everything is matched by this star, right? So body is inside the HTML, this P is inside body, and if there were more elements they would all be inside something, right? Because starting from body everything is inside something. So the first rule set applies to everything, and we can see this particular rule would apply to body and everything inside, right? Okay, so now what this solution seems to be doing, I think on everything we are setting a padding of 50, and on everything we are setting a background which is a linear gradient, right? So basically on HTML, body, and the paragraph we are giving everyone a padding of 50 and a linear gradient going from, so this is 6 to 5 AA, this is the dark purple color, and going to light purple color. So how does it which direction does the gradient go? Does it go from top to bottom, left to right? By default I'm not sure. I think we can check it out. Let's try to just okay, seems like it's going from dark to light. Let's do a non-repeat. Let's just set it on body. I'm just trying to see what's the direction, by the default direction of a linear gradient, which is I think it's dark to light, right? So yeah, the first color here is a dark color, the dark purple, and the light purple. So that means as we saw, this default gradient goes from top to bottom, right? So let's recap. There's an HTML root element which has a padding of 50 and it has a gradient from dark to light, right? And inside that So of course, yeah, since it has a padding, the body would uh, like shrink down in size because the content size is now uh, it's lesser because of the padding on the HTML. So the body would shrink down. It would again have a background from again dark to purple, right? And it would also have a padding of 50, just like the root element. And inside the body we would find a p tag, which would again have some padding and the same background, right? So just to verify uh, what we just talked about, let's try to comment out this thing, which is not what we have talked about yet. So let's just comment it, and this is what we get. We don't see multiple elements here. It seems like there's just one HTML, which or maybe just one element which has a linear gradient going from dark purple to light purple, right? White as a comment in the solution, the padding does two things. First, make the space for the nested element smaller, and second, give the p the required height. Exactly. So just like I think what that means is, just like it makes body smaller, it makes p tag smaller too because of the padding on the body, and also there's padding inside the p, so p gets the height too because of the padding, which happens to be just the amount required in the target. Okay, so let's see what's happening here. Ideally, like we discussed, we should have seen three elements here, maybe nested one side another, three rectangles probably, and all of them having same purple to light linear gradient, but we don't see three rectangles here, right? So what's happening? So what we can do is inspect. Okay, we don't want the mobile one. So just move this here. Okay, so if we go inside the iframe, then inside the body, let's try to see what's happening. So this is the HTML element, right? As you can see, like it's the whole thing covering the whole frame, and there's that green space which is the padding, 50 pixels of padding, and yeah, that looks fine. And then we go inside, the next thing we have is the body. Body looks fine too. It seems to have a margin which is the default margin, probably it's the, yeah, as you can see, it's the 8 pixel default margin which you get on an HTML page in a browser. So that's the 8 pixel margin, and then of course because every element has a 50 pixel padding, it has 1 2, and p tag again with its own default user agent margin coming from the browser, and the padding and the linear gradient. So we can see all the three elements that we talked about are here, and they have the correct declarations applied to them, but we don't see them here. So yeah, okay, so what's happening here is, since all the three are nested inside each other and they have the same linear gradient going from purple to dark purple to light purple, right? And they intersect midway of the element, like till the center it goes dark purple and then light purple. So because each of the elements have the same linear gradient and their color stop is at the same location, which is center of every element, which is the same for all the three elements, right? Because they are in the center of each other, so their color stops are at the same point, which is this is the color stop. And because it's all dark purple above and light purple below, we can't differentiate among the three elements. So they are there, but you don't see them. Just like imagine if there were these again three elements and you had the same background color on them, wouldn't differentiate, you wouldn't be able to differentiate between them, right? So yeah, White has a suggestion, so we could add just like add a outline to differentiate. Let's do that. Let's add a 1 pixel solid outline. So there you go. We can see those three elements are there, but because they have the linear gradients at the same color stuff, they just merge into each other and you can't see them. All right, so with just this thing we get a pretty close solution. I mean, we have the three elements and we have the linear gradients on them, but you can see, like, if we consider the outer one, I mean, it's the actual HTML element. So the outermost rectangle is the HTML element. It has the correct background, it has the correct linear gradient, which is dark to purple. But if we go inside, which is the second one, the middle one, that's the body. And body here, if we see in the target, it should have the gradient from light to dark instead of dark to light, which we have right now. So somehow we want to inverse that direction of the gradient. And then the paragraph, that has two issues, sorry, just one issue. It has the correct background linear gradient. I mean, it goes from dark to purple, which is exactly what we want as per the target, but the size is not correct. We want it to be lesser in width, be a square exactly. So that's the issue with the paragraph. And with the body, we body again has the dimensions problem as well, just like the paragraph. So for the body, we want to fix the direction of the gradient and also fix its size. So I think that's what the rest of the two declarations do. Let's try to uncomment them one by one so that we know what's happening. So this is the first thing that we do, which is set a margin. And remember, the inner universal selector is actually a nested selector, which is star inside a star. So that applies to only nested elements, which in our case is just a body and a paragraph tag. So our body and paragraph tags now have a margin. Top and the bottom one are set to 0. They are reset to 0. So remember, the body got a default 8 pixel margin from the browser that gets reset to 0, 0 for the top and bottom. And also the paragraph has I think a 1 em margin, top and bottom, so that gets reset as well. So the top and bottom for both are reset to 0, and for the left and right we set it to 25. The solution sets it to 25. So that is when you have an element and you set left and right margins on it, and if there is no space for it to have those margins, it causes the element to shrink itself, right? So let's see what that means. Let's say if we have this 0, right? So this is what we had earlier without the margin, and see what happens if I just like try to increase it. Let's do it in steps of 10. So you see, if I set margin, it shrinks body and paragraph because of the margin, right? So Juraj probably like tried different margins, and seems like same margin on the body and paragraph actually gives them the exact dimension that is required for this target. The 25 fits the bill here, and we have the right dimensions for all the elements now, right? A little bit close, and now with the outline you can see the dimensions are correct. Now the only problem left now is the paragraph is fixed, the body is the only one left now, and it had two problems, the dimension and the direction of the gradient. So dimension is fixed. The last property actually fixes, I think, the direction of the linear gradient. So of course one way would have been to actually not here, maybe what we could do is for the body we could have set again the linear background, and this time instead of the default direction, let me just copy this one, right? So this would have been the trivial approach where you reset. So this would be 180-degree, I think. Yeah. So this would have been the trivial approach. So what I'm doing right here is, for just the body, I am changing the background linear gradient. I'm changing its direction. So the default is 180, I suppose. uh, I change it to 180 degree to 0. So instead of going from dark to purple, we have the body from light to purple now, and we have the exact target replicated that way. But Juraj didn't do that, because this needs a lot of vectors, right? So the smarter way to do here, in sense of like code golfing, is actually to not invert the linear gradient, but instead invert the element itself. So what that means, we could just scale the element uh, like inversely. Now scale -1 means you scale the element in x direction and in y direction as well, but we require just y direction, right? So how does like this work? So that is because our linear gradients are from top to bottom or from bottom to top, doesn't matter, but it's in a vertical direction, right? If even if you scale, even if you invert them horizontally on the x direction, doesn't matter, it doesn't change anything, right? Because the gradients are going this way vertically. So even if we are doing -1 on the x direction, it doesn't cause any difference. But because it happens, it inverses the element on the y direction as well. It just like inverts the element vertically, and with it the gradient also inverts. But remember, this applies to star inside star, which means it applies to body and the paragraph, right? But we just wanted to invert body, right? But this is inverting paragraph as well, and even after that it seems to be working. Why? So let's see here what's happening. Let's open the inspector again, try to inspect what's happening. Okay, so HTML is done. Let's go inside the body. So you can see the body is now inversed because of scale -1, right? So it's inverted, and if I just like toggle this, you can see. So you notice the difference only shows up in body but not in the paragraph. Body goes from dark to purple without it, and if we invert it, it goes from light to purple, which is fine, which makes sense. But the paragraph, without the scale, it's dark to purple, or it's dark to light. With the scale, it's still dark to light. Why? Let's see. So the reason is the body, like it makes sense, it just inverts. But if we inspect the paragraph, you'll see what's happening here. It also inverts because of star inside star, which means like it's nested. But it inverts, but its parent, which is the body, it inverts too, right? So see it this way. So the paragraph right now is dark to light, it goes from dark to light. Inverting it would make it light to dark, but then the body, which the paragraph is inside, also inverts. So the paragraph became light to dark was because the body also inverted itself. It again resets back to dark to purple, right? So basically, if we summarize this, the paragraph inverted twice, right? Because of the scale applying on itself and also on its parent, on the body. So that's the reason I believe it inverts twice, and again gets back to its original state, which is dark to light, right? So that's what this solution does, right? Let's just remove the outline and bingo. you have this working solution. Pretty neat, right? So I think the most creative thing here is use of the scale. uh, like trivially you would have inverted the linear gradient, which would have required a lot of code, a lot of characters. But this is smart, where you just like scale it. That's the first thing. You actually just scale and reverse the direction. But the another amazing thing about the solution is it should have affected the paragraph, but it does not, because of double inversion on the body. White has a comment here. It first inverts the body including the paragraph and then inverts. Exactly, right. So P basically gets double inversion, and so it stays the same. Pretty neat, right? Nice. Let's see if there's some other approach that we can reverse engineer. So now that we know what the approach was, let's I think the other solutions would make sense if they're using the same approach. Okay. Oh, second solution is by White. Hey White. I think it's the same thing. Yeah, so we can see same margin, same scaling. So this is the same approach. David seems to have the same again. Okay, this one, right, again same. This one looks different. This is 5 characters more, and I think, oh, again, okay. It's not using a P, it's using image tag. So it increased a bit on the characters there. Could have used an image, but same. This is again scaling and doing the same thing, right? So you can see like the approach everyone has taken, at least till Ludwig here, they are all pretty much the same approach, but still the character counts are different, right, for each. So that's where the beauty of code golfing is. Even if you get to the right creative thinking, you get to the right approach, there's always like some work to do. You still have to constantly think where you can reduce the number of characters, and who knows, like even this solution might be like outdone some days or some weeks, some months later by some other creative approach, right? Or maybe the same approach, but you just manage to reduce one more character out of it, who knows. So yeah, this is again the same approach of scaling. James has in the same thing. Yeah, all the top 10 solutions are exactly the same approach, but you can see like they span from 94 to 106. That's the beauty of code golfing. Cool, so we are done with the first target. The other one that I had in mind was one from 15th November. That's an interesting one, at least from the looks of it. I hope I am still live. It's all working. That's amazing, man. This is the first time I've gone live and it's all working. Nice. Cool. The one from 15th November. Let's switch to November and 15th November, which is this one. Cool. Let's see. Okay, again, a very simple to replicate target. Talking about the trivial approaches, you would have a rectangle and a circle on top of it, and you're done, right? That's pretty much it. Now let's see what we are here for, the top solutions. Okay, just at a glance, let's look at the character counts of the top solutions. The topmost is 89, which is like at a good margin. I think what 7 characters, yeah, good 7 characters shorter than the next best, which is Ilya's solution. So it goes from all the way from 89 to 99, right? 10 characters difference between the top and bottom, and this is a simple rectangle and a circle, right? This would be interesting. This should be interesting. Let's see. Okay, let's load up David's solution here, And just like we did in the last uh, reverse engineering, let's put in some spaces, some new lines, so that we can actually read this thing. Okay, zoom. Okay, that's an interesting property. Have you folks used zoom in a professional project ever? I don't think I have ever used it. Good. Just to finish off things, let's have the style tag as well. I know what zoom does, but I don't know what's the purpose of the property here. I think we'll figure out. We'll try to figure out. Let's hope we figure out. Okay. Yeah. So again, kind of similar structure here. There's no p tag, so the only tags we are left here, which are the default HTML tag that we get and the body tag, right? Just two tags. So we are kind of exploiting them. And again, we have a universal selector here, so everything inside applies to everything, which is just HTML and body. So these properties apply to HTML and body. This property applies to HTML and body. And then, like the previous solution, we have a nested universal selector. And since the only nested element we have is body in a default web page, so this thing right here, this rule set would just apply to the body, right? So in a sense, what we are doing, like this solution could be rewritten like this, right? So the trivial approach would be writing it like this, but again, to code golf, you know, the only nested selector is the body. So even if you replace body with star, it does the same thing, right? 1 second. Oh yeah, it worked. I thought it didn't work. Right, so this works. So let's comment these two. In fact, let's do them separately. Yeah, so if we comment the properties for specifically the body, all we get is this. And you can see like what's happening here. We just have one property, which is every element on the page, which is HTML and body, should have a background, and the background layer has a radial gradient. Radial gradient is basically you have your gradient going from a center point and expanding radially outwards, right? So this is one of the approaches to create a circle. So we released a blog post recently. We started a series about creating shapes with CSS, and the recent post was how to create circles with CSS. So this is one of the approaches described there as well. You start a radial gradient, but then you have a hard color stop. So you go from one color to a certain radius, and then at a hard stop you change the color, right? So you get a circle of one color and a background, which is like optional. You can have a background around that circle. So that's the idea of using radial gradient to create circles. Okay, so body, HTML and body both are meant to have a radial gradient here, and so this thing is, I believe, I think the center point or the radius. I'm not sure. Let's check it out. Okay, white had 105 characters there. Little short of the top 10. Okay, radial gradients seems to have lot of possible things that you can give in the first parameter. Radial gradient is radial gradient syntax is radial shape, or you can give the radial size, or you can specify add position, and then the color stop list is meant to be there, right? We are of course not specifying the add position in our solution. It's just one number, right? For the first parameter of radial gradient, there's just one parameter, so definitely not this thing. Now it could be the radial size or the radial shape. What is radial shape? It could be a circle or ellipse string, so it's not that as well. So what we are specifying there is the radial gradient. What's happening? Something up with my mouse. Oopsie. What's happening with my mouse? Just try to unplug it. Sorry folks about this, some random issue popped up. Okay, seems to have worked if I unplug the mouse. Okay, it's working back. Sorry about that. Alright, so we are talking about the radial gradient. So we figured out that the first parameter is actually the radial size. So this is the Q unit being used here. Sorry, the Q CSS unit. So Q is basically a quarter of a millimeter. That's 1/40th of the 1 centimeter. So that's a neat property you would generally use in code golfing, because it's just one letter, one character, and a lot of times your actual pixel value could be converted to some Q value. So this is 1 Q, which is basically 1/40th of the centimeter. That's the radial gradient size. And just to be sure, let's try to change it. This is 10 pixels, this is 20, 30, you can see. So we are actually increasing the radius of our circle, right? Let's switch back to 1Q. So that's basically the size that the solution figured out would be the best to have, right? So a circle which has a radial size of 1Q, and it starts from pink A8, which is pink, and goes all the way to the background color, right? So just like I mentioned earlier, it goes from the actual color the circle is meant to be to the background color it needs behind it, right? So that's the radial gradient we have here. And of course, like, this applies to the body and the HTML, and so you get a circle, a background, a radial background on both, which is a circle on both. So because it is at the same position for both the elements, both the circles just overlap, and I believe that's the reason why we don't see two circles. In fact, we just see one circle, right? Let's just verify that. So again, inspecting, this is one neat way I use a lot to actually figure out what's happening with the solution. Would we have reverse engineering? So this is the HTML. This you can see has a background, and there's this body. Again, it has the same declaration getting applied, so it has a circle as well, right? Just to mess up, let's see if we change the background position. So the property in the solution, it's creating a circle at some position, but what if we just like mess up the position a bit? Okay, so body's circle came down because of our messing up the position, but you can see you don't see any circle behind it, right? Like I said before. So I was wrong. You have two circles, but the reason why you don't see the circle of HTML element is because body's background is over HTML's background, and hence HTML's background is just like out of sight, right? Because it's hidden. And remember, like the radial gradient that is being used here, it's not just creating a circle itself, but it's also giving it a color outside the circle, which is the background color we need for the target, right? So in summary, background of body is spanning on the whole body, right? It's not the circle. There's also a background, the orange color around the circle. So the HTML just like hides between behind the body. So I think that's what's happening, and so you don't see the circle of the HTML element, right? We could verify that in fact, I think, but okay, yeah, it's fine. Let's assume like what I'm saying is right for now. Okay, so we have two circles created. Another thing to note here, this is not just radial gradient getting applied. So this is this part from the radial gradient. The radial gradient part is the background image thing, but remember we are setting properties on background property. We are setting values for the background property, and that doesn't take just the background image, but you can specify, because it's a shorthand, you can specify the background position, the background size, and a few other things as well in the same value, right? So this does the same thing. It uses the shorthand to set, first of all, a background image, which is this radial gradient, and then it sets another value here, concatenated with the background image. There's no space here, and there's some value here. So what is this value? 0-26 VW. So I believe like this is again a code called shorthand for actually this thing. So the two values that you give after the background image, I think that's the background size or the background position. I'm not sure. Let's see. Background CSS. Okay, we want to check out the backgrounds properties syntax. I'll just bump the font size a bit. Background, we want to check out the formal syntax here, right? So for the background, you can give the layers, comma separated layers. So we know that we can give multiple background layers to the background property. Each layer can have an image. So in our case, the image is being set by the radial gradient. The next thing that you give is the background position, and optionally you can separate the background size with a slash. So that's what the syntax is. Since there's no slash in our case, the next thing is the background position. So just after the image, you have the background position. Okay, let's see. So background position is again two values, the one in X direction and the position in the Y direction. So we have two values here. for x it's 0, and for y it's I think minus 26 VW, which is the viewport width. 26% of the viewport width. I seem to be having some error in streaming. I hope I am live, folks. If you're not able to see me clearly or not hear me, let me know. Okay, Zippy Boo is here. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but I'm going with Zippy Boo for now. So Zippy Boo is here. Hey Boo. He has a comment: using one length argument, you can tell the browser to make a circle. Otherwise, it creates an ellipse. This ratio is calculated according to the background size. Cool. So you're live, everything is clear. Yes, we can. Cool. Everything works smoothly. Great. Cool. Let's continue. So yeah, the first parameter creates a circle for us. Instead of a ellipse, it sets I believe a equal radial size on both the dimensions, so you get a circle. Okay, so we were talking about this parameter, and this is supposed to be the background position, which is 0 in x direction and minus 26 of viewport width, minus 26% of viewport width negatively. That's the position in y direction. So let's just like mess up with this and see what's happening. So if we have the 0, that makes sense. You get the circle right in the center, because you haven't specified in the radial gradient any position. I believe like that starts the gradient from the center of the element and then spans outside. So if you don't give any position, that's the circle in the center. If you start giving it some negative position, I think the circle would go up. That's right. And for the particular target, seems like the best value came out to be minus 26 VW. So that takes the circle there. Now you will notice like the circle is not exactly where we need it. This is where we need it, but it's not there. But we still have two more properties to reverse engineer. So hopefully, not hopefully, it works, right? So the circle would come at its right place. I myself have no idea how it's pronounced. That's cool then. We are in the same situation then. Okay, so yeah, so we have the circle applied on HTML and body both on the star universal selector, and this is where it's positioned as of now. Let's go inside our nested universal selector now, and remember this applies to just body. So what is being done with the body here? First of all, a margin is being set. Let's uncomment this and see what's happening. There you go, a slight difference, and okay, right. Sorry, I missed one thing here. So this is how you would normally in a professional project you would write the background position in the background shorthand. But if you remember, this is how it was. It was not written this way originally. I put in some spaces, but this is how it was. So the thing that is being used here to reduce characters is if you have numbers separated with strings, you can that's not the exact concept, but what I figured out in a what do you call it, in a layman term, is if you have strings and numbers one after another, you can remove the space between them and it would work just fine. So because we have a bracket, which is the terminal character of the background image part of the syntax, and then you have background position, which is a number, so you can just like remove the space between them and it works, right? So this is how it was. You can do this thing and it works, right? There's no difference. Now what about this? Like if you had a positive number and if you remove the space here, you would see like it doesn't work, right? It just totally changes the output. But because it's negative, the second value is negative, the x and y, the y is negative, so you can optionally remove the space here as well, because now the parser knows that there's a negative, there's a hyphen in between, so this whole thing can't be one number, right? So it's being uh, rightly passed as a separator of a new number, right? So it knows 0 is the first part, and because there's a hyphen now, it should be interpreted as negative symbol, minus symbol, and minus 26 is now being passed as the second value, which is the y offset, the y offset of the background position. So that's why this thing works here and gets you two more characters out. So but yeah, let's have it more readable way. Cool. So now that we are done with this, let's get back to the margin. If you see here, this is what the value is. 21 is so we see two things here, the first value and the second value, and if there are two values, we know the first one applies to the top and bottom, and the second one applies to the x and left and right, margins, right? So 21 applies to top and bottom, 21 pixels of margin for the body, and this would apply to the left and right. But what exactly is this value, right? This is not a number. There's a percentage sign in between the number, which is an invalid value. So the thing which is being done here is again the same thing which was used here, the same concept, which is if you have a string delimiter or a delimiter that makes sense, which can't come inside a number, in between somewhere a number, you can reduce the space, you can remove the space and use or exploit that character to actually let the parser know that this is a new number starting, right? So I think this is how it is meant to be. You can see there's no difference in the output if I just put in or remove space here. So this is how it is meant to be. There are actually three numbers: 21, 43%, and then 9. But since the parser would know that even if you remove this space before 9, even if you remove this space, it would know that this can't be a single number, right? It's an invalid number because of the percentage sign in between. So it knows 43% is 1 and 9 is a separate number, which is just like concatenated together. So we can write it this way, and now we know that there are not two values, in fact three values. So now our understanding changes. We have a top margin of 21 pixels now on the body. The left and right are 43% of the body's width, and then the bottom is a different value, which is 9 pixels, right? Another thing, like you would notice, like there is no px mentioned anywhere, so that's optional. You can remove px if your web page is running in Quarks mode, which is the case in CSSBattle. There's no doc type on the document, so it doesn't the page doesn't get parsed as the latest HTML as per the latest HTML syntax and the latest HTML rules. So you can do away with certain things on the page and your page will still render fine in the Quarks mode. So px is one of those things which you can do away with, and things just work even without that, right? So this is basically like px values all over, wherever you don't see anything after the number, where it's meant to be. So we have a top margin and the bottom margin, and then 43% of left and right margins, right? So without this is how it looks, and if we give a margin to the body, just moves the circle a bit downwards, as we can notice visually, right? Now the last property, you can see, like we are nowhere close to the target right now. We just have the circle which is like at the wrong place, and we have a rectangle We need a rectangle, but we don't have one right now in the target, so we are nowhere close, and the only property that's remaining to be reverse engineered is that zoom. So that's definitely doing a lot of stuff, I believe, right? Let's see if we can figure that out. Okay. uh yeah, so just as we discussed, just turning on the zoom gets you the target right away, right? Gets you the rectangle at the right place, shifts the circle to the right place, right? It does a lot of things. Let's see what's happening. Okay, so now back to our inspector. Let's try to go inside and see what's happening with zoom. We have few comments. Also works for things like 0 0.5, 0 0.5, 2.5, 0.5, exactly, right? So yeah, there can't be two decimals in a number, right? So if you have two numbers with decimals, you can just like club them, remove the space, and it works sometimes. Okay. So there are cases where it doesn't work. Yeah, so yeah, I plan to do exactly that. Start with a smaller zoom value. So that's one technique I use to reverse engineer these solutions, is like if you see a big value in the solution and you don't know what that does, or if you know what that does technically, but why is it doing what it does visually, uh, reset it to zero, see what you have without the property, and start with smaller numbers, increment in smaller values, and see how it gradually goes to the target value, and goes to the target visual output, right? That helps a lot of times, like White said. So for the body, uh, zoom 6 fixes everything, right? It gets you the target you need. So how does it work? Let's switch on zoom, but let's make it 0, right? So as expected, with zoom 0 you just have what you had, a single circle which is the body's circle, and overlaps, the body overlaps the HTML, so you don't see the HTML. Now so before like incrementing zoom, what does zoom do? uh, let's just like fire up the documentation for zoom quickly and just recap what it does. I believe it like zooms as the name says, but maybe there's some intricate details on that. Zoom CSS property can be used to control the magnification level of an element, right? Transform scale, which we know also does the same thing, can be used as an alternative to this property, right? Yeah. So the zoom CSS property scales the target element, which can affect the page layout. When scaling, the zoom element scales from top and center when using the default writing mode. So this is a good point to keep in mind. So whenever you apply some transformation, you always have an origin of the transformation, right? So this is a scaling transformation, in essence, not exactly transform scale, but it scales something, so it has to have an origin from where it scales, right? It magnifies. So the default origin, as written in the documentation, is top and center. So the body is top and the center, so that's the place where it would start the transformation, right? In contrast, an element scaled using scale will not cause layout recalculation or move other elements on the page. If using scale makes the content larger than the containing element, then overflow comes into effect. Okay, so that's a difference from scale. Zoom, uh, in contrast to scale, would move things around, as in like you zoom something, recalculations will happen because the things around it will move, I believe. That's what it is saying. Okay, so that's what the documentation is. What do we have in comments? A cool trick that many people might not know is that you can hover the mouse over a numerical value in the inspect tab and scroll to increment. Okay, does that really work? I didn't know that. there's 0. If I scroll, doesn't work for me. You can hover the mouse over a numerical value and the spec tab and scroll. Doesn't work for me. Am I doing something wrong? The whole thing scrolls for me. Let me know, Dhanush, if I'm doing something wrong. Additionally, you can hold the certain keys to change. Yeah, this I think I know. This works. Okay. So we want to play with the zoom value. So zoom is 0 right now, and remember we are first click to select the value. Okay. Clicked, and then I can scroll. Oh, nice. If I go scroll up, it goes to negative value. If I scroll down, nice. This is a good trick. Thanks, Dhanush. That would be a lifesaver. Okay, so we are targeting the nested. Hey Abe, hello. How are you? Pretty late to the stream, but you're welcome. Okay, so we are targeting universal selector inside universal selector, and the only nested element we have on our page with nothing defined is the body tag. So for the body tag, we are changing the zoom, which we just read in the documentation, has the origin at the top center. So if this is a body, this is the whole rectangle is a body, this is the top center, right? This is the top center, this is the origin, which is used by the zoom property. So if you increase the zoom, this point would stay where it is because that's the origin, and anything below that would just like go further from the origin, right? So scaling magnifying is basically the origin stays where it is, and everything around it just goes further from the origin, right? That's what scaling is, that's what zooming is. So because the circle, this gradient circle is below the origin, if you zoom the body, it would go further downwards, right? That's, I think, what is expected. Let's see if we are correct or not. So this is 0. Okay, what just happened? So this is 0. If you do a zoom 1, okay, I think zoom 0 is probably negative, sorry, an invalid value, and 1 means like the default zoom. So nothing happens for 1. Let's just quickly check what's the number, values, percentages, number, zoom factor equivalent to the corresponding percentage. 1 means 100%, so yeah, one setting it to 1 means normal, which is like what it is. Larger values than 1 would zoom. Cool. So I think 0 doesn't make sense, so nothing happened with 0, right? So nothing changes. Cool. So 1 is default value, the circle stays where it was with zoom 1. Okay, 0 makes it invisible. Okay, all right. So 0, setting 0 as on the zoom property makes the body star inside star, makes the body invisible, but you still see the circle, right? Which circle is this? That's the circle on the HTML element, right? So body becomes invisible, HTML starts showing up, and that's the circle we see now. Which documentation is this? That's the MDN documentation, Mozilla's documentation for the web. So that's what I'm referring to, that's what I refer to generally. That's pretty good. So most of the times, like, documentation is enough for the case at hand, but sometimes you need to dive in more and look into more definitions or algorithms at times. So what I do is, like, I just scroll at the very bottom where you have the link to the specification right here, the specifications section, and then you can just like go into the actual specification by the CSS team, and this has the like most of very detailed stuff where you can refer and understand a lot of things, how a certain thing is done, why it is done, what's the algorithm being used to do it, and a lot of stuff, right? Okay, yeah, exactly this, yeah, the specs. Cool. So getting back, zoom 0 hides the body, zoom 1 is what we had by default, and let's try to increment it in smaller values. 1.1, okay, that's interesting. 1.2, 1.3, I don't know what's happening. Okay, uh, so this was the circle, which I believe is body's gradient. If I increase it a bit, uh, that circle increased a bit in size, it went upwards, um, contrary to what we discussed. I was thinking, because the origin is at the top center, the circle should have moved downwards, but it moved up. That's one thing. And some other circle has started to pop up um, from bottom. It's repeating, background repeat by default. Okay, all right, so that's the reason, because we have the background repeat as repeat by default. Whatever you said on the background would repeat uh, itself in both the directions. So that means with a zoom 1, what you have with this and this whole thing is repeated in all the directions. That means you have this circle with uh, you have the circle with the orange gradient, and then immediately below that you would have same thing, which is again a pink circle somewhere here with again an orange aura around it, right, so called. So okay, that makes sense. You don't have a single circle, you have a lot of circles. Try putting now repeat to see if this is the actual reason. Okay, let's try to verify that. So when we increase the zoom, we got two circles. Let's just increase it a bit more. So we have the two circles, a little bit bigger than the original circle. That makes sense because we increase the zoom. For the background, let's turn on repeat, turn off repeat. Yes, there we go. So like Abhay mentioned, because we have repeat on, we had multiple circles, and that's why a second circle started popping up, right? But if we turn it off, we don't have anything. Okay, the mystery of two circles is solved. Now what's happening? Why is the circle moving upwards? Okay, all right, let's do it again. 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, the circle keeps moving upwards and keeps increasing in size, so the size part is fine. Okay, okay, so seems like zoom increases, like it magnifies the element. So we have one circle, we have another circle, and they increase in size because they magnify, but they are coming closer as well. So I think it's for some reason reducing the separation between them. Why should that happen? So what we can do is, let's do one thing. Let's copy this and go back to our uh, test case editor. Let's try to do something here and see if we can figure it out. So we have a body. Let's limit our background size to something 100 pixel, 100 pixel. And let's put in this background. Okay, so this is something, okay, to make it more similar to our CSSBattle target. Let's put in the right dimensions. So this is what a target looks like, right? Okay, so there we go. So we are now able to see beyond our target size. This should give us some clarity why things are happening the way they are. Okay, so like 400, 300 pixel is something like around this rectangle. This is the rectangle. This has a circle, and because it's repeating, 400, 300, 400 by 300 rectangle is repeating below as well, so you get the second circle. Why does it get clipped? Maybe I missed something. Okay, because of the margin. Let's put in the margin as well. That doesn't work. Okay, fine, let's ignore the margin. Okay, so this is what we have, repeating circles. Now let's play with some zoom values and see if we are able to figure it out. So this is 1.1. Let's see what happens if we increase it. Okay, here it seems to be working as expected. Zoom is magnifying the circles, so this is 1 zoom, and 2 should just like double the length of the circles. No, that didn't happen. Seems to be the same size. What's happening? Let's see in the comments if we have something. I think zoom x just multiplies every length value, not percentages, for example, by x. It's very different from scale. So here minus 26 VW gets further away from 0, so it moves up. Okay, I see. Zoom 2 minus 26 VW acts like minus 50 VW. Okay. Zoom also increases margin, padding, etc. So 21 pixel and 9 pixel are also multiplied. Okay, that's good to know. Zoom works from the center. Since the radial gradient was above the center, it moves more up. If it was right at the center, it would expand. Okay, that was expected, but the whole understanding was, for zoom the origin is at top center. That's what the documentation said, at least. So we were going by this documentation here, and it said when scaling, the zoomed element scales from top and center. Yeah, that's what it says. I think that's also what's happening here. So if we have 1.1, and you increase it. Okay, so let's make it 0. So this makes sense. This is our 400 into 300, and just at the center we have one circle. So if I increase it to 2, you will see that it moved down. How do we verify where the origin is? Zoom just increases the element size and pushes everything away. So does the layout shift in contrast to circle. Hmm. Okay. So this is what the default is. Now we need to verify if the origin is at top center, which is this point, or is it here. So if it is in the center of the element, so let's do one thing. Let's also give the body a minimum height of v edge. So now we know that the body is actually scaling to the complete frame height, and so the center is somewhere near here. We do have a scroll, but let's just ignore it, it's not much. So this is where the center is approximately. Now let's try to uh, increase the zoom and see what's happening. So we have two cases we need to verify. Either the zoom origin is here, as the documentation says, top top center, or uh, like I think Zippy Boo mentioned, um, no, Dhanush mentioned zoom works from the center. So he says zoom works from the center of the element, I believe. So the body is spanning completely, so this is the center. So from here or from here. So in first case, if the center is here and we zoom, the circle should move downwards, uh yeah, downwards and a little bit left, I think, because sorry, yeah, if the center is here, the circle should move downwards because it's at bottom of the origin, it's below the origin, and it's a little bit left of the origin, should it should move more left of the origin. That's what I think is expected. And if the zoom center was in the center of the body, then zooming would move it upwards, right? Am I right? Let's see. If I do zoom 2, the circle moves down, right? Let's do small values, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So it's moving downwards. So definitely not in the center. The zoom center is not in the center of the body. That's, I think, clear. Top center, right? Yeah, so it's not in the center of the body. It's definitely up uh, above the circle. So some, I think the documentation is right, top center, but still the circle is not moving leftwards as I expected, because if the origin is here, it should move leftwards. Just to get the circle to spread out to fill the whole body's background. Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's rewind a bit and see where we are. So we are zooming, and because okay, so I think one important thing to note here is where exactly the body is. So this is HTML. There's no padding and margin on the HTML, so it's a normal HTML tag. But the body, if you see it, it's given a margin, right? Or do we have it commented? No, it's working. So the body has a margin. One second. Yeah, this is the body. It has a margin, as you can see, the orange part, and the radial gradient is negative. It has a negative y offset, right? So this was the normal value, but if you just keep it moving upwards, okay, so it's not at the center, it's somewhere above the center. And now if you start zooming, so it goes upwards. Now where is body's top center. It should be this, right? It still moves up. This doesn't make sense. In our separate test case here, it uh, it shows that the top is the origin, right? Because the circles move downwards. But here it doesn't make sense. It's the opposite. The body is like this, and body's top is somewhere here. Okay, but like someone said in the chat, all the values are magnified. So the minus 26 VW also gets magnified to double the value, or like if you said zoom 2, it gets doubled. So even if the circle is supposed to move downwards, it would move upwards because of double the negative offset. Doesn't make sense. Okay, I think we can verify. Let's put it at 0. Now this is good. We expect this. Now let's try to increase the zoom. This is 1. If we do 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, okay, not what we expected. It seems like the zoom's origin is in the center of the body for this particular thing. I don't know why is it different. Anything in the chat? And the margins make it the correct size, so we are left with the rectangle. Okay, yeah, I get that part. Like the zoom is increasing the circle, so you can see without the margin more clearly that if you increase the zoom, slowly the circle just like increases, and then it stops and becomes a rectangle, right? Why? Because when it was small, just make it 1, yeah. So when it's small, like this is the body, right? This is the whole body, and there's a circle in between. But when you magnify the whole body tag, so what happens is, because everything gets magnified, like we saw in the chat, we have some margins at the top and the bottom, right? So if you zoom the body, those margins increase. They also magnify because the margins increase, like we saw in the last target as well. The margins actually push the element inside, right? So it shrinks the element if you increase the margin, and there's no space, so the element shrinks within, so it reduces the size. It helps in reducing the size. So we have some margin on the body, on the top and the bottom, even on the left and right. So when you increase, when you magnify the body, the margins increase. They also zoom correspondingly, and because the margins increase, the body keeps shrinking as you zoom. Along with that, the circle, the radial gradient, also magnifies, right? So the body is shrinking continuously and the circle is increasing with it, right? So at one point you have the body shrink to the exact size of the rectangle of the eye, the target, and at that point the circle is so big that it just like fills the rectangle, fills the body, right? So the body shrink to the right size, the circle magnified enough to fill the body, right? The complete body. So what you get is the body filled with the big circle, right? So all you see is a rectangle. That's what's happening. Yeah. Okay, now I figured it out. So I think now we are clear on the rectangle part. The body is continuously shrinking, the circle is increasing, and at a particular point the body becomes the right size of the rectangle, filled with the circle, with a big circle. Now why does the other circle, which is the gradient of the HTML, start showing up? So that's because of the body reducing in size, right? Because of the margin. because the body is now shrunk and now reduced, and like it's so the body reduces to this part, just this part, right? And everything around it is the margin, right? This is all the margin. So let's see. I'll just hover on the body and increase the margin, right? So see what's happening. Like we discussed, the body is just like reducing in size as you increase, and the circle is increasing, right? Let's do it once more. So this is the default zoom. So when you're zooming, the everything is zooming. The margins zoom, the margins increase, the body shrinks, it's shrinking, and the circle is increasing. At this particular point, you keep reducing, and you get the exact rectangle. Now everything around the rectangle, around the body, is the margin, right? The body is left just at the rectangle, and because the body is only at the rectangle position, everything behind it is like it starts to become visible, which is the HTML element. So since body is just this part, you can now see the HTML tag behind, right? And hence it's circle. I think that's what is happening. Let's just verify. Yeah, so you keep, I think 6 was the right value. Okay, so at this value, the body is exactly where we need it. It's filled exactly the way it should be, and the circle which was on the HTML element, it starts showing up because the body is no more overlapping the HTML element. I think that's what's happening. Okay, that makes sense, but at the same time doesn't. Yep, and margin is also increasing, so it's now shrinking. Yeah, I think that's what's happening. Yeah, this is, man, this is crazy creative. I don't know how can someone come up with this. Like figuring this out required so much experimentation. Like this is the first time dealing with zoom, so maybe that's why, but like still, like it needs a lot of experimentation, a lot of tweaking. But man, this blows my mind. Like how can you come up with such a solution? This is crazy. I just want to play it with more. And so this is the body, this is with 1, you keep increasing it. So see what's happening. I'll just like, yeah, now it makes more sense. I like playing with the dev tools. So I'll hover on the body so that you see the margins on the body. Now I'll increase the zoom so you'll see everything happening in slow motion, like it's like getting to the solution. So you increase the zoom, the body is increasing, you see what's happening, like the circle behind the body starts showing up. Oh, interesting. So as the zoom is increasing, the repeated circles, so there are like circles being repeated all over, right, on the body. So because of the magnification, like every circle is like just going up. So all the circles like start going up as you, sorry, what happened? Yeah, so the circles are just like zooming up, going up because of the zoom, because of the magnification. The body is shrinking, the HTML circles start showing up. HTML doesn't get affected, remember, because the zoom is only being applied to the body. So the circle on the HTML, the radial gradient on the HTML stays where it is, so you have it at the right place. Okay, so that's what the background position on the background is meant to be. It's for setting the circle of the HTML element at the right place, right? Because we know when the zoom starts working, the HTML won't shift, so the circle on the HTML stays where it is, and then the zoom just like changes the body. It gets the body to be the rectangle we want it to be, and the circle inside it, or the circles inside it are so big they just fill the complete body, right? Yeah, this is so interesting. And there we have it, RI. Cool, this was so amazing. I just like, oh yeah, this is David's solution. Crazy solution, David. Let's just have a look over the rest of the solutions. Are they same? I think this is similar. It again has a radial gradient on the universal selector, and just for the body it has some margin. And so this is where the difference is. Instead of zooming in, instead of magnifying through zoom, it's increasing the font size. That's also a way to zoom things, right? When you increase the font size, things zoom. So similar approach, but using a different property, and a lot of characters more than the top solution. Again, a similar solution, similar to the same as the second solution, Ilya's solution. Again, using font. Not sure why they didn't play with zoom. Yeah, interesting property. Zoom. Learned so much about zoom today. Okay, we have similar approaches still here till Zippybo's solution, and then Gunnar he has a different solution. I think he's using border block. That's a different solution altogether, different solution, I believe. But I think like we have been streaming for 1 hour 45 minutes. I think we can have a quick look at this maybe. What do you guys say? Should we check this out? Should we check out Gunnar's solution as well? This is same Vivarena. Ludwig is again using border like Gunnar. Yeah, I think those are the two categories of solution in the top 10. One using the zooming with the radial gradient, and the other approach is with the border. Let's have a quick look. At Gunnar's solution. What's happening here? So this is an interesting solution. You'll see like there's no style tag here because all the style is being written in the style attribute. Let's do battle 1 versus 1. That's a good idea. Maybe for the next stream, maybe Abe, we could do it for the next stream. I don't think we have a lot of time. Let's see. Let's just quickly try to figure out this one, and then maybe if there's more time we can do a quick battle. Okay, so let's just fire up inspector straight away and see what's happening. Okay, so there's HTML. As there's no style on anything, just on the body, right? So you see like for the HTML there's no CSS being applied. We straight away moved the body, and that's where the magic is happening. Okay, let's see. Let's comment out the only two things that are there, and okay, yeah, cool. So this is the body by default. Inside the HTML with 8 pixel default margin. The solution first of all changes the margin of the body. That's interesting. Okay, so like we know now, increasing the margin within constraint would shrink the element inwards. So there we have it. The body is now shrunk to some size. I believe like the width is now just enough for the eyes rectangle, and I think the border the bottom of the body is where the rectangle's bottom is, right? So we are matching with that, the body's bottom with the eyes bottom, with the eyes rectangle's bottom. Okay, so that's what margin is for. The next thing the solution does is set a border block. A border block is basically setting the borders on the block directions, which is top and bottom. So essentially we are setting the top and bottom borders with a single property shorthand. It's a solid border with 30% of viewport width, right? So that's what this does. Again, to figure this out, let's try to start from smaller values and then go up gradually. So this is without border with a 0 width border. If we have it 1 VW, this is 1% of the viewport width. So you can see like the body, which is this much, now has a top and a bottom border of 1% of viewport width. If you gradually increase this to some values, the top and the bottom borders would merge. They'll hit each other and fill the body, right? So that's what's happening. I actually forgot what the default value was. It's 30 VW, right? So the borders keep increasing. At one point they hit each other. That's where the body completely fills with the color. And then if you go further on, right, that makes sense because there's not enough space, so the top border, I believe, is now like just going downwards. You might change border block to bottom, but that's one character longer. Hey, Gunnar is here. Hey, Gunnar. Hi. You might change border block to border bottom. Okay. Let's see how does that work. So you keep on increasing the border. So this is the body and that's the border. So you keep increasing the bottom border. In the case now, you keep increasing it. It fills the body. Now notice like the body's margin. One second. Yeah, so you notice here, just notice here, that's where the body's margins are, and that's what the body size is. So if I just keep increasing the bottom border width, at one point it just like fills the body, and after that it increases the size of the body. That's what's happening. You can see like the body going down the iframe, like it's like overflowing from the iframe. So because the bottom border is now bigger than the body's dimension, body's height specifically, the body has increased in size, right? That's what's happening. So we don't need to go that much, but this is where we need to stop. 30 VW. So yeah, that's what the thing is. I think like what this has shown us is if the border like becomes too big, then the element size would increase beyond that, right? Now let's get back to our block border, which means like we have two borders now. So like expected, they meet each other. Now if we increase further the borders, there won't be enough space inside. The height of the body won't be enough to accommodate the borders, and so the body increases. So that's what you see here. Body is now increasing. We need to go till 30 VW. So that's what the solution goes to, 30 VW. The body has become bigger in size. The height of the body is bigger in size because of the borders. They are like too big for the body. Okay, so this gives us something like, it gives us a rectangle, not the right size. Hi Mishila is here too. Hi. Hey. Right, so we have a rectangle. It's not the right size, but we have a rectangle, and there's just one declaration left to be uncommented, and let's see like if we can decode what that does. So this is supposed to change the top border, just the top border, to a dotted value, and also the width is being changed, right? So of course this gets us the target, but why? uh, oh, okay, that's that is what Gunnar meant. So we can just change it to bottom, but he used block, and that was for saving one character. Okay, now I get what you meant. Bottom is what we need to do in essence, because just the bottom needs to be changed, but still he used block because that's one character shorter. That's what code golfing is, people. Okay, so the bottom gives us the rectangle, the bottom border, and the top one is set to a dotted border. Right, let's make it simpler. Yeah, so we turn this on. So this is 0 width right now, and it's changed to dotted. Let's see what happens if you keep increasing it. You'll see what happens, right? The top border, the top of the body, which is right here, right, that's a, a dotted border now, small dots, right? So what we are doing here now is increasing the width of the border, which essentially increases the size of the dots. That's what the dotted border is, right? Just dots. The dots keep increasing, and you would see, like, because the dots are increasing in size, you would get lesser number of dots as you go further, right? So you keep increasing, you keep increasing. You had 4, then 3, we go to 2, and if you increase further, you would have just one dot, but at the wrong position, right? So all you have to do is now is keep increasing so that the single dot that we have becomes exactly the size we want. 59 and 60, bingo. Okay, that's crazy. And how do you come up with such solutions? Wow, this is amazing, so creative. Wow. So basically, like, this is where creative thinking comes in. You know CSS, you know everything, but then you need to somehow come up with a different perspective. You need to somehow notice that the circle and the rectangle could be two borders, a top and a bottom border of an element, of a single element, right? The top one could be a dotted border, the bottom one could be a normal border. That's what you need to somehow see in the target, in the image, right? And then you try to experiment. I'm just like guessing, like, this is probably, this is how these players figure out such amazing and mind-blowing solutions and mind-blowing approaches, right? Crazy. uh, Border top overrides to top part of border block, right? Right, exactly. Amazing solution, Gunnar. Crazy. Okay, yeah, this was fun. Learned a lot about these approaches. I might try out uh, some more targets with these solutions. Not the solutions, like, but with these approaches. Zoom was definitely interesting. Learned a new trick here. If you want to just set a bottom border, probably go with bottom border block. That's one character shorter. Neat. Nice. Cool. I think it's been like exactly less than 3 seconds, less than 2 hours. It was fun. I hope you folks had fun too. Probably learned a few, one or two tricks here and there from these top solutions. We couldn't see a lot, but I think it was fun still. Like, reverse engineering it, uh, making a static solution into a much more animated video, sort of like the actual animation of how you would reach the target visual from from a zero value to the right value. That is really fun. I think that gives you a lot of insight into the approaches being used. So it was fun, I think. Hope you had fun too. um I think that would be it for the stream. Let me just check my notes. Yeah, that is it. uh do let me know in the comments how the live stream was for you, if you liked something or disliked something, if you would want to have something different in the stream. Maybe like Abhay said, he would love to see a one-on-one battle. Maybe we can do in the next stream, definitely. And yeah, just let me know. uh, yeah, this was fun. Thank you all for connecting, taking out time to come here, everyone. So I like plan to do this on Saturday nights. I know it might not be night for a lot of you, but it's night for me. So this is called Saturday Night Live. It's Saturday night here. That's what I plan to do it on. Uh, yeah, see you on next Saturday. I'll be looking forward to seeing you all. Have fun. Happy weekend. Bye bye.